The crime of pukao exists among us, and sometimes those who practice it fascinate us with the artistry of their con. And sometimes we live in fear because of the indefensible way they violate our privacy. Due to their own strict code of conduct, perhaps, these crimes have never been known to be violent. But there was one who fervently practiced the art of pukao for a purpose not unlike a pact with the devil. For 6 months, Kuala Lumpur police were in a state of high alert for the long-shirt rapist. Plain-clothed policemen were dispatched on frequent patrols when one night, a group of them stumbled upon a mysterious man. Amazingly, the intruder made no attempt to run away, and later, once caught by the 3 policemen, the intruder still retained his composure while being questioned.
Kan? Inilah orang dia. Inilah perokok yang kita cari tu.
Apabila saya memegang tangan tersebut, dia begitu terperanjat sekali. Seolah-olah dia menyangkakan yang kita tidak nampak wajahnya ataupun kita tidak nampak dia pada waktu itu. Selepas saya menggarikan suspek, terlintas di fikiran saya bagaimana suspek tersebut berasa begitu rileks sekali.
But the calmness was only a precursor to the powers he was about to invoke.
Cakap betul. Kau dengan siapa ni? Ambil, tolong tu ni. Kembalikan kuasamu kepadaku.
He began chanting hard a strange mantra in a foreign language.
Saya anggap ianya memang merupakan satu jampi. Yang mana pada masa yang sama, Mansur berasa keadaannya begitu lain sekali.
Pian! Apa hal ni?
Sufyan's colleague began finding his entire body becoming constricted, as if invisible lines were binding him.
Bulu romanya begitu tegak dan dia rasa dia pun tidak mampu untuk bergerak. Lantas saya teringat untuk melawan pukau.
He had heard from his elders that one could break such spells by urinating near the spellmaker. True or false, his colleague did recover soon after that. In spite of all the ruckus and commotion, not a single neighbor appeared to have noticed the arrest that night.
Kerana semasa saya menangkap suspek yang mana berlaku pergelutan dan juga dengan jeritan-jeritan yang diselang-selikan. Memang kawasan itu mungkin telah digunakan atau lebih jelas lagi mungkin dia telah memukau kawasan tersebut.
Suddenly, the police authorities found themselves face to face with their notorious serial rapist, and he was very visible. Up to that point, he had gotten away with no less than 28 cases, with victims being raped under a state of unconsciousness and not a single hard evidence pointing towards his methods and ways. It would take a very special officer and many weeks of interrogation to bring out the truth from him. Hamadan is not your usual run-of-the-mill detective. With an unassuming manner and a high intellect, he is trained with Scotland Yard, is one of the top forensic experts in the country, and has an innate ability to connect with criminals, just like a reverse pukao artist. Upon arriving, he didn't expect to find the suspect to be so young and calm, considering the situation the suspect was in.
Saya tengok gerak-geri tangan dia, gerak-geri muka dan tentangan mata sama mata, suspek hendak menceritakan sesuatu. Inilah masa dia, saya hendak masuk ke dalam jiwa dia, atau kita dalam aspek psikologi, we jump into his mind.
As it turned out, he was not only jumping into the mind of a serial rapist, but also a master pukao artist.
Perang psikologi saya gunakan ke atas suspek ketika itu adalah pendekatan secara lembut, iaitu banyak kepada pertuturan. Saya selalu membawa watak yang saya senyum, banyak ketawa dengan suspek dan kemudiannya dapat menjiwai apa yang saya nak daripada suspek ketika itu.
Amidan unraveled the suspect's initial defenses. He soon began opening up to Amidan, confessing of seeking some forbidden powers that required him to rape 79 young virgins. The interrogation went on for days and weeks as Amidan went over every one of the 28 cases concerned.
Perkataan yang sering digunakan adalah main. Dalam erti kata yang sini adalah untuk mendapatkan darah-dara. Apa yang buat tuntut ini? Dia kata saya tuntut ilmu mau nampak muda sehingga selama-lamanya. Hampir 30 kes ini kami tidak jumpa pun apa kesan-kesan yang mani.
It would suggest that it wasn't quite a crime of passion in this case, a conclusion that Sufyan very much agrees with.
Setiap mangsa-mangsa yang kita kenal pasti ataupun mangsa-mangsa yang membuat aduan, dia ni tidak, orang kata, main hentam saja, mana dia begitu terancang.
Suspek akan mengikut mangsa-mangsa ini sampai ke jejak rumah. Kemungkinan sampai 3 atau 4 kali untuk memastikan suspek datang dari rumah tersebut. Selepas kenal pasti rumah atau tempat mangsa tinggal, beliau suspek akan berjalan buat tinjauan atau riki di belakang rumah, cara menaiki rumah dengan tidak memecahkan rumah.
The victims sometimes complained of the feeling that perhaps someone was watching them and maybe stalking them prior to their encounter.
Dia akan cuba untuk mengetahui di mana target-target dia tinggal. Dia akan meneliti suspek-suspek tersebut. Dia akan cuba mengenali suspek-suspek tersebut.
Kebanyakan kita tidur akan buka tingkap. Dia memanjat tiang elektrik atau tiang telefon atau dinding belakang dan terus dapat masuk ke dalam rumah mangsa.
The rapist had surprisingly been very cooperative. What remained now was to ask how the pakao actually worked.
Apabila masuk ke dalam rumah, kebanyakan dan kesemua suspek mangsa-mangsa mesti tidak sedar diri. Ikut kata suspek ketika itu, beliau telah memasang ayat-ayat yang sepatutnya digunakan dalam itu.
The suspect had described in great detail how he would suck on a menthol sweet and collect his saliva to then release into the victim's mouth with minimal contact. Apparently, it would help retain the victim's state of unconsciousness. This last testimony from the rapist perfectly matched the testimonies of most victims that remembered tasting something sweet and cooling in their mouths during the night of the incident. This creates a solid link between the pakao artist and his victims, enabling Amidan to verify the confessions of the pakao based on the victims' independent statements.
Banyakkan mangsa langsung tidak sadarkan diri, meragut darah dari anak dara sunti ini. Yang setakat ini, itulah proses yang paling senang saya tengok dilakukan oleh seseorang penjaya. Tidak ada pergulutan. Hampir-hampir dekat sebulan setengah kami duduk semeja hari-hari. Antara dialog-dialog yang masih saya ingat adalah apabila suspek memberitahu wak saya telah langkah pantang dan terus menangis. Lepas itu, wak apa pantang wak telah lakukan? Macam ni wak saya telah mengucupi dari seorang bayi perempuan umur 3 bulan.
It was a baby he had encountered in the house of his last victim, and it reminded him of his own baby. It would seem the rapist never harmed the other people in the house as he entered, but the simple, innocent act of kissing a baby's forehead was also part of the rule and the vow he had taken. And breaking this rule was apparently an